Justin, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here, there, everywhere. It's the magic of the internet.
Yeah, I'm really happy to talk with you today. Why don't you just take a moment and introduce yourself for anybody listening?
My name is Justin L. Shaw. I suppose the main title is author. But I like to call myself a lot of different things, and I like to make up names for myself, honestly. It's kind of fun. I call myself a mystical comedian, a spiritual Sherpa, a hope dealer. Just all these things that kind of encapsulate kind of my progress and my new kind of way of life and what I'm doing now. So there's no real for sure title. So I felt like I have to make something up. So I just kind of made up some names for myself.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
It is.
Tell me, what led you to this? How did you get into the space where you're at now?
Oh, it's been quite a journey. Do you want me to start from kind of the beginning? I won't be too long winded about anything, but did you like just kind of start at the
Sure.
beginning kind
Yeah,
of thing?
let's
Okay.
talk about the big events, the big experiences that you had that shaped your experience and led you to where you're at now.
Yeah, so childhood was, just to kind of sum it up briefly, was not the best. I think a lot of people struggling out there. It starts in childhood, right? And so mine was really hard to kind of decipher for quite a while of why I struggled so much in my 20s. And I'll get into that later, but it's just, I've spent nights in park benches and rehabs and halfway houses and jail and just, I mean, horrible things in my 20s. It was just a complete dumpster fire. But trying to figure out why that was difficult. But my childhood, looking back I just thought it was fine. What I didn't realize was that it was just me and my mom, and I kind of lived in an emotional vacuum. I mean, she had her own issues she was dealing with, and the way she dealt with them was to be very isolating. And it was just her and I growing up in the home. My brothers and sisters are much older. They had moved out of the house. My mom's older. My dad is older, so we just most of my memories at home, were kind of alone in my room. We did things together. We'd go out together. She did not like to cook, so we'd go out to eat together. So there were things, and I would never, I don't want to talk bad about my mom. She did the best she could, and seeing, her mother was one of because my parents were so much older. Three out of the four grandparents were dead by the time I was born. So the only one I got to meet was her mother, and meeting her mother and looking back on it now, I understand why she was the way she was. I mean, my grandmother was kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Mac's mom, who's just this chain smoking, drinking, like, come give your granny a kiss. That kind of like that kind of woman. That's just, that's my grandmother. And so that's who raised my mother. So that's it makes sense. So her thing was just kind of isolating, and she had some depression, anxiety, and things like that. So, um, love was not mentioned in my house growing up. That word was simply never mentioned. And my dad was around more when I was a child, but the marriage was very toxic, so he did his own thing, and that just it had to end. And so he left when I was younger, so there was just her and I, and he's kind of an emotional vacuum as well. So when you don't tell a child that they're valued and important and things like that, they look to the world for validation and safety, and the world is always going to tell them they're unsafe, unloved, and unvalued, and that's exactly what happened with me. So once I kind of started figuring that stuff out, because my mother was never abusive in that way. It was neglect and abuse. They go together, but are different at the same time, and so neglect was my issue. So that just led to into the 20s of the dumpster fire of just I was a little bit later. I found solace in when I was growing up. My drugs and alcohol when I was a kid were more food, sports, and movies and TV and video games and those kind of things. And I just was just caught up in so much in that world and of sports and just pop culture, American pop culture in general, just whatever it was. And that kind of brought me out of my pain and, making people laugh. I realized that, I watched like Saturday Night Live and Jim Carrey movies and I could kind of imitate and make people laugh. And that got me high. So that made me forget about my pain. So that was an outlet. And then food was probably another outlet. My mom was ignorant on health or nutrition of any kind. So there was sugary snacks and stuff just all over the place. And so that was my other outlet. But as I got older, it turned into drugs and alcohol. Kind of, I was a little bit later, like 16, 17. I know there's, the people started drinking at 11 and things like that. I thankfully avoided that young. So it was 16, 17. But once I found it, it was like, oh, this is it. This is what I want. This is the feeling I want to chase. After I tried just weed and alcohol and just those things, and then that kind of graduated as I went to college, went to Arizona State, and started getting introduced to more things. And pills at that time, that's what really grabbed me. Where it wasn't necessarily the illegal drugs, because pills were still kind of the socially acceptable in the scene a little bit. There was some cocaine here and there, but I liked what was the feeling of kind of the opiates and the benzodiazepines and kind of chilling out. So that's kind of what I got hooked on, and that
Is that
led
the feeling that
to
you were chasing?
yeah, just
The
because I have a
chilling out?
lot of yeah, the anxiety and things, and that I could never do stimulants if I didn't have those things to kind of come back down on and relax, and I could do the downers without the stimulants, but I could never do stimulants without the downers. So the downers were the important thing, and so that's what I really got hooked on. And the opiates at the time, I was really caught up in that whole opiate crisis of kind of they were really heavy, and they were just doling them out in the mid 2000s when I was in kind of college age, and they were really easy to get. And so, but the pills then, when they dry up, then now heroin sounds okay. Well, whatever, I don't care. Just take. I don't want withdrawal. So, I mean, you could see where that led. I moved to LA and kind of did my thing in stand-up comedy, but I could never be successful at it because drugs were so prevalent in my life. So, you know, um, I just did some kind of, like open mics and things, but I could never and I was accepted into the Groundlings School of Comedy, but I never went because I was high all the time. So it took some doing to really finally late 20s get into rehab, and that kind of starts the second chapter. Do you want me to start that one too?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So yeah, so at that point, I went to rehab, and I just thought, get me clean and I'll be fine. Like the reason I'm struggling so much is because I'm physically addicted to these opiates, these benzodiazepines, alcohol, big one. And once I'm clean, I'm going to be fine. Like I keep using because I'm addicted. So I got clean, and I didn't listen to all the spiritual mumbo jumbo, the AA and go to church. You can keep all that. Uh, and that didn't work. So that lasted, I was surprised. It lasted 3 months, which actually is pretty good looking back on it. Without, diving into the spiritual, emotional side of things. And, so it lasted 3 months, and then relapse happened. So now it's like, okay, there's something more to this addiction thing, to this depression thing, to this anxiety thing than just getting clean bodily. And so, because something brought me back. And so now I'm like, okay, all right, maybe there's something to this spiritual side of things. So I go back again, get clean. And so now I'm serious about it. And so now I'm interested in whatever I can do. So it's like, well, you do this. You go to AA, and this was a faith-based rehab center, and you start going to church, and you start going to AA, and that'll do it. It's like, okay, all right, I'll try that. And so I started going, and that, worked for a time. And, the whole Christianity and AA thing go very well together. It's kind of like peanut butter and jelly. Because, AA is essentially disguised Christianity. So they work very well together. And so I just did that for a while. And, I was sober because the emphasis is on sobriety in AA, but not necessarily the thriving aspect of life. So I was definitely far from thriving. And the Christianity aspect, was leaving me just desiring, like, full of, my anxiety was worse because there's this programming in Christianity that's, it's I compare it to being in this big beautiful mansion Christianity. So there's 17 rooms and 16 bathrooms, and there's a pool, and there's a game room, there's a basketball court, and there's everything you can want in the mansion, right? But you're not allowed to leave the mansion and go, investigate other things, other religions, things like yoga and meditation. These are taboo things. So, that was fine. I lived in the mansion for a little bit, but then my mom was pronounced terminally ill. And so I went through the year of kind of seeing her mind and body dwindle away. And what made things 100 times more traumatizing was this programming from all these Christian pastors I listened to that, if you're not going to church and you're not Christian, you're going to hell. And so on top of seeing this happen, which was traumatizing itself, I had this programming which made it a million times worse. And I probably wasn't fun to be around my poor mother, because I was just filled with fear and dread the whole time. And after she passed, I really started digging and thinking that, the mansion has now crumbled. The mansion has crumbled around me, and this is not working for me anymore. And this whole thing is just, I went back and I had relapsed and just was off the rails. And so I just decided that, I wasn't going back in the mansion. I wanted to get out, because I realized that mansion is built on a cracked foundation of fear and judgment, and it can crumble at any time. And that's when it crumbled, is when my mom died. So I just started investigating other things and other, belief systems and other ways of life, and realizing that life outside the mansion was much better than they told me. They told me it was a zombie apocalypse out there, and life outside the mansion was not a zombie apocalypse. There was life out there, and it was much better out there than inside, because I was stuck. So I started investigating things, and that's when the bliss attack happened. So I traded my pastor for a shaman, and started, really investigating things and doing meditation, and started investigating these beliefs that I had placed in my heart and soul, and that were in there since childhood, in there as an adult, and these beliefs, and started questioning them, and really, are these true, or is this really, is this accurate? And started doing meditation. One day, I wasn't even meditating at the time, but the best way I can explain it is a bliss attack. That's what I call it. Was my first bliss attack. I've had several since then, and it's very hard to explain to someone, but I realized in this moment that it's just 3 hours. It was just waves of pure love coming in. I'd never experienced anything like this ever.
And this is during a
And
meditation, you said?
it was actually not during a meditation. I was meditating at the time. I was meditating daily at the time, but I was actually stretching when it came on. It was just like a panic attack if you replace panic with love. So it was just this onset. It was like, something's happening. Like I could feel it in my body, like something's happening. And so it wasn't, your out of body experience where I hear people, you're out of your body and you see yourself, or you're, travel to places. No, none of that. I didn't see loved ones. I actually call it my near life experience, because it's not a near death experience, because I wasn't dead. And so, it made me realize in that moment that, I was on airplane mode. And I had been on airplane mode my whole life. And
What do you mean airplane mode?
when a phone is in airplane mode, it's not going to get any signals. It doesn't get any emails. It doesn't get any text messages. It doesn't get any calls. It's
isolated.
So it's still functional. A phone on airplane mode, you still, play with your music or do whatever, but it's certainly not living up to its potential. And
it's disconnected in a sense.
It's completely disconnected. And I realized I was on airplane mode. And I was realizing that most of society around me is on airplane mode. The people who aren't are children. And sometime, as children get older and they start listening to society, airplane mode is turned on, but it can be turned off. And so at that point, it was kind of planted this seed of, well, let's create something, a map, to help people get off airplane mode and to have their own bliss attack. And I kind of struggled. This was about 4 years ago, and I still struggled for a couple of years, like trying to turn airplane mode back on, which is not possible. Once it's off, it's off. And the phone from source never stops ringing, and so it just rings and rings and rings and annoys you until you answer it. And so I had a couple of years where I was just putting off, but I finally, move forward was like, oh, okay, all right. And I got more direction and more clarity for what it's supposed to look like and what this map is supposed to do and how it's supposed to help people. And that's when I, started writing. And yeah, it's really completely changed everything about my life. And I try to, I really kind of, I was always I was in AA for obviously for quite a while. So the kind of system I developed, it's, 12 steps, they're very just rigid, and one, you would one, and the next one, two, three, and you work them in a line, and just like religion, it's very rigid. Well, mine is very fluid, and you can kind of move in between them. And so instead of making steps, I thought, well, moving forward is good, but moving up is better, because a bird has a better perspective on things than a worm. So I created 13 rungs, and so it's kind of climbing up to a higher elevation of consciousness. And the number 13 was extremely important because it's regarded as unlucky in our society, which is bullshit. It's not unlucky at all. It is actually a very lucky number associated with divinity. And in tarot, it's associated with death, rebirth, and transformation. So this system I call sorcery. Um, it's not about wizards and hooded robes and Eye of Newt. It's I spell it with a U, so to differentiate itself from the magic. It's real magic, and that stuff is cool too. But if you really want to try that stuff, your energy has to be in the right place. So this gets the energy in the right place and creates this real magic of sorcery. So that's kind of how everything came to be.
Yeah. Let's break down, what was this disconnect, this airplane mode? Exactly were you isolated or disconnected from?
Source energy. So there is a field. It's called
Uh-huh.
many things around us. It's the quantum field, the unified field, the Akashic field. It's called many things, and it surrounds us at all times. And explaining source energy to someone is a bit like explaining water to a fish. So it's kind of difficult to explain water to a fish, and they're probably not going to catch it. Really not going to get it. It's just that, it surrounds you. It's, you're alive because of it. You move because of it. There's a substance here that you probably don't know is there, but it's there. So that is what we live in. We live in a sea of consciousness, and that is what I connected to. And like I said, with the airplane mode, you don't understand it's there. It's not. It's something that's very hard to. A concept is very hard to grasp, but it's easier to grasp once you're kind of. It's that Wi-Fi signal, like if the if you never connect to the Wi-Fi, you don't get all the information that's available on the internet. And so it is this field of information, that all this information that ever was and ever will be. And, I was able to connect to that and write a book for someone who, was spent nights in jails and park benches and like squeaked by with a 2.6 GPA in college. Like that's not possible in the like that's just not something that is, I mean, I guess it's not probable, should we say, not at all even remotely close to probable. If people that know me, and like when they hear to write a book, it's like, okay, like, but it actually is very good. And the only way I did that was to connect to this field. And so that's what I mean by disconnected.
Okay. When you were in rehab and you had the idea that if you got off of the substances, that would heal you in a sense,
Mhm.
and then afterwards there was the relapse. Is this connection that you're talking about here to source the X factor that changed that pattern of the substance use?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And yeah, that's, I had to go to rehab several. I've been to rehab 5 times. So, and it was the finally the fifth time that was like, okay. And I had, because I had a lot of traumas, adult traumas in between. And, what I went through as a child was more lowercase t trauma, which is kind of that slow burn emotional neglect. And then there's capital T traumas. And I had a lot of those happen as an adult too. So, dealing with those, I didn't deal with them in the best way. So, now I've after my last time in rehab, I've been out and it's a couple years of sobriety and I'm, doing, much better than I was in terms of because picking up a drink or a drug because today was bad is guaranteed to make tomorrow worse. So I have a much better understanding with that. And when I feel disconnected, I just connect back. So there's times when I every day like I can feel disconnected, but that's why I meditate every single day. I take a shower every day, so I need to meditate every day. So that is my connecting back every day. And if I didn't do that or do the things that I know are good for me, then it's very easy to fall back. My health is like a sand sculpture, like a big, amazing sand castle that you build. It can be just majestic looking and amazing, but if you don't go back and take care of it within a week, it's gonna start to fall apart, and you're not even gonna know it's what it was originally. 2 weeks, it's gone. So it is critical in my connection to have a daily practice and regime that I follow so that I continue to stay connected and continue to keep up the sobriety and to keep, the kind of anxiety and the PTSD. I've, pretty bad PTSD from all this stuff, and it can come up at times. It came up last week. And so it was, just kind of a flare up, and those happen. And where I was just really, really struggling. But I have the tools now to help me through that. And so it's been very critical and helpful, and so that I don't fall back, because again, if I go through something like that and just I feel like drinking, it's just going to make everything worse. So
Can you walk me through that process of what a flare up looks like and what you do in those times?
yeah. So yeah, you know, the body keeps the score. And so what the mind forgets, the body remembers. And so I know now that my body is playing a recording that is not happening in front of me. So it was feeling like so I had a very tough situation about 3 years back where I had an ex-girlfriend, and she has her own spiritual issues, and she just decided to up and not only leave but move back to across the country to Boston, where she's from, and then just decided to just cut me out of the picture with our infant son. So I've not seen or spoken or anything in 2 or 3 years. So that's something I deal with daily. And there's really not. Hopefully, at some point, I can gather enough funds together to maybe hire a PI, or he's not dead, but also I've been grieving him for 2 or 3 years now. So that's very tough, and some days are much tougher than others, and so that energy that I was feeling, has been stuck kind of in my body, and when it comes up, I have to remind myself that, my body is playing this recording that is inside me that is not happening in front of me. Nothing in front of me. My inside world and outside world are not matching. And that's PTSD. I mean, that's what happens with soldiers coming back from war, and, your inside world and outside world are not matching up. And so, it's critical for me to kind of, do the things that I know are good for me, and kind of, this I revisit kind of the kind of system I developed. And I'm also looking into, I also very highly believe in the psychedelic world. So I just started ketamine treatment. So there's 6 treatments. I'm going to look into that, see how that goes. I've done psychedelics, but like eating mushrooms and watching Alice in Wonderland is not therapeutic in any way. So, so I'm revisiting the world of the psychedelics, and so it's a doctor assisted ketamine treatment. It's legal, at least here in Arizona, and there's 6 sessions of those, and I just had my first one yesterday, so it went very well, and I'm very excited to see, because they can be kind of a reboot. Sometimes it's just. I'm also listening. There's an ayahuasca thing kind of in Mexico. It's not legal here, but I'm looking at that as well. But the psychedelics can kind of be a reboot, and their legality here. They're not legal here because it scares big pharma, because these are things that can actually cure. And as opposed to the focus on the symptoms, which I've been stuck in that world for 20 years, and there's just a focus on treating symptoms. It's just treating symptoms and symptoms, but they're all one core issue, that we have all these symptoms, whether it be anxiety or substance abuse or depression or all these chronic illnesses. There's one core issue, and that's spiritual bankruptcy. And so if you go into, like, and it's not to say doctors are bad, right? I mean, if you have an acute injury, and so if I fall off a ladder and there's a bone sticking out of my arm, that's not a great time for meditation. Like acupuncture isn't going to do a whole lot. Like I need a surgeon to set that bone and put it back in place. And so, but after it's put in place, it is the body that heals itself. What made the body heals the body. So, I came up with a way to try to heal. So trauma, we need to set the emotional bone, right? So it's easier to understand, the physical body than the emotional, spiritual, mental, but it is the mind, body, spirit connection. It is a triangle, and all three must be paid respect when you're dealing with chronic issues. So what we have to get at, and what the book is about, and I think what some of these psychedelics can do is set the emotional bone and allow the body to heal itself. Otherwise, the PTSD will never be healed. If we don't know how, if you don't set a bone when it's broken, well, now you're always guarding your arm, because that's a sensitive spot. So you can't, anyone that's going to touch your arm for an unhealed broken bone, that's going to be sensitive and sore for until it's set properly and given time to heal. If it's continues to be broken, it's a sore spot, and that's the same thing for PTSD. It's once that sore spot gets poked at, there's a reaction instead of a response. So what we look for is that's kind of the shadow reacting. The shadow is made up of our limiting beliefs and traumas, and that's the shadow reacting, whereas kind of the sorcerer is the responder.
Sure, sure. Can we dive a little deeper into your process and what you're going through here?
Yeah, I mean, just like with in regards to what
Can
exactly?
I ask you some questions about it?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So you're describing this recent PTSD flare-up, specifically with your former partner and your son, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you're saying that your inner world and your outer world aren't matching here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, when you're feeling the situation with your son, you said you were grieving your son, the loss of your son. I'm curious, what is your internal experience like there?
Yeah, in a situation like that is kind of tough. So when I'm going through that kind of PTSD moment, I'm reliving the moment of losing them, is what it felt like. So
Mm-hmm.
so when I was reliving that moment last week, I that moment was not actually happening in front of me. Um, but it was reliving that moment. And grief is something that's is needs to be addressed. But as long as you're not, the mistake that people make the most is to run from grief instead of embracing it. If you learn how to embrace the grief and deal with it as it comes up, and not shove it away with a pain ducker. I call them pain duckers because there's a million out there, and they're not necessarily bad. Drugs and alcohol are not bad. It is the attachment to them that causes all my suffering. So, the TV, the phone, we have a million ways. There's sex, gambling, that, whatever it is that when you feel nasty, there's pain duckers everywhere. So, it's critical when someone is trying to heal from grief, from a loss. And I had to go, my mother is stuck in there as well as the childhood. So there's stuff that is healed, and there's other stuff that's healing. And as I said before, there's no healed, there's just healing. And so, what I go through with that, it's just to kind of, grief is okay. It's okay. They say in the military, embrace the suck. Just embrace the feeling, and cry, and just let it out. Because if it continues to get stuffed away, that's when it can explode out. Because the soul can only take so much stuffing before it just explodes. So if you're dealing with grief in a way, and grief can come up, it's a nonlinear process. It comes up whenever it comes up, and it needs to be felt. And so that is the way I deal with grief from him, or the loss of my mom. I lost my sister. I have a childhood friend. We've all lost people, and as we continue to get older, that's the one guaranteed thing, is we're going to lose more. And
Right.
so grief is something that has to be understood better. Instead of just pushing it away and going to see a doctor, and you're not going to go to a psychiatrist without getting a bottle full of pills. They're going to give you pills. So maybe that's a route to go. But for me, the side effects were not okay anymore. It's to make to I just needed to feel. And now that I have gone through, it's really tough when you have a lot of pent up grief, when you have a lot of pent up trauma. The first year of getting clean and all those emotions coming through, there are good days and there are bad days. And I had to really respect my bad days and get through it and know that this is stuff coming up. If you have to feel it to heal it. You have to heal it. Otherwise, what you resist will persist.
So
S-
let me ask you real quick,
mhm.
Justin, when you're feeling this situation, this is flaring up for you, the grief of your son, what exactly are you feeling?
Uh, you know, Loss, and there's a lot of stuff where it's just like I'm not involved in his life at all, and I'll see things that kind of are tough to see. Obviously, the father son things, and and if I see on television and stuff, that can kind of bring up some tears, and I just let it happen. I try to have a perspective shift on it. I don't believe I'm going to be shut out of his life forever. He's just an infant, and he's gonna get older and figure stuff out. Kids are smart, and so I believe at some point, and even though I don't consciously know if he's dead or alive, because I have no contact. He's not
Yeah.
and doesn't do anything. I know in my heart that he's fine, and that, that intuition, that intuitive voice of our higher selves, is all I need to
So,
not be
Justin,
panicky about that. Mm.
um, I just want to notice here, those are all the things that are happening, and those are your assessments of the things that are happening.
Mhm.
The question is, what are you feeling?
One of my favorites. It's sadness.
Yeah.
Sadness is definitely what I'm feeling, and so that's okay. I've learned to be okay with that sadness
Okay.
and let the tears out.
Let me ask you another question. Stay with me here. When you were a kid and you were going through all that isolation, negligence, what did you do with your emotions then?
I stuffed them because that's what
Yeah.
that's what I saw
Yeah.
my parents
That was
do.
the only thing that
So
was available to you.
mhm. Yeah,
How
yeah,
did
we
you do
don't.
that?
With food and with movies and video games and
Distractions.
sports. Yeah, distractions. Yeah,
Distractions.
worldly
Because
distractions.
when you can't make the pain stop, you can't set boundaries with it, and you can't get away from it, you can't go away physically, you go away mentally,
Mhm.
right? So then you have various behaviors that disconnect you from the present moment of the pain that you're feeling. And so when those don't become stimulating enough to distract you from it, then the substances come in later on because you need something more intense. So this
Yep.
is a pattern of disconnecting, as you've mentioned multiple times, from what you're experiencing.
Mhm.
So fast forward to where we're talking right now. When I asked you, what are you feeling? Did you see how much of the mind kicked in?
Yeah. Yeah, that's my programming, right? That's what I programmed myself to do. And it's hard to
Mhm.
overcome that stuff, like it
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. So when you're saying that your inner world and your outer world aren't aligned, it sounds like what you're saying is there's pain here. It's pain from a past experience. So the pain from the past is continuing to show up here now.
Mhm.
What purpose do you think that this pain from the past that keeps showing up here now might serve?
Well, I mean, there's certainly reasons for everything, and I believe the pain that I've gone through is to have greater empathy for others going through the similar situation. I like to, I have kind of a side business of spiritual Sherpas, something that I do, and it's just kind of it's kind of a therapy session. And I believe it's important to help others along that are struggling. And the most critical thing in helping others for me is empathy over sympathy. Sympathy is listening to someone's pain, while as empathy is feeling it with them. So I absolutely believe in and everything is kind of working for our greater good, even if we don't see it in the
Okay.
moment.
We're identifying a core belief here right now. When you were a kid and you weren't getting attention, you weren't getting the care that you needed, what did you do to get it?
I was started acting out
Started
in
acting out?
yeah, and starting in middle school. I was a very good kid through elementary school, but kind of that
Hmm.
puberty stage is when the negative attention got me attention at home more than the positive stuff.
Acting out, so negative things.
Hmm.
I remember you mentioning being funny, mimicking or imitating Jim Carrey, making people laugh.
Hmm.
So, being funny or doing things for other people, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, kind of that attention. There's kind of an attention high, I suppose. There was
Hmm.
doing the funny things, making people laugh. I would do things, like mess with teachers. A teacher would be up like doing a, division, long division on the chalkboard, and I would, reach up and grab her, stapler or like her like nameplate and stupid things and shove it in my backpack while everyone's watching and they kind of giggle, and she'll like turn around and wonder what's so funny about long division. So it's those kind of things that, got me that, that took my pain away. That was like, oh, I like
Hmm.
that feeling, like that's, the kind of that class clown thing. And so that definitely doing those things for the attention and for the laughs were something that I definitely used as a drug. Yeah.
Okay. So this doing things in front of other people or for other people gets you the attention that you're looking for.
Hmm.
So let's hold on to that one for a second. And I want to ask, you mentioned that your mom was going through a lot of her own things. You said that she did the best she could, but she was carrying around a tremendous amount of pain herself.
Hmm. Yep, definitely.
I'm wondering, when you were a kid, did you ever have the urge or the desire to try to do things for her in order to get that attention as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd make her laugh. Yeah,
Make
that's
her
something
laugh. Okay.
yep, I would make her laugh, and that was because she wouldn't laugh very often, so I would do things and imitate things on the radio, or
Uh-huh.
uh imitate and just make her laugh.
Hmm.
Like George Bush was the president back in the early '90s, and I'd kind of do my impression of, like, well, it wasn't really George Bush as much as it was Dana Carvey doing George Bush, and she just found that so funny. Or, like, so it was, these little things, and I was always good at voices, and I'd hear something on the radio and kind of imitate the voice, and that would make her laugh. So, and I remember telling her things like, just, I could feel her energy, and I would say things like, just smile, mom, like it's gonna be okay. Like, and that's, I remember
Hmm.
saying that to her when I was probably 7 or 8. So,
What'd you get
that,
out of that?
I mean, it eased the energy. I guess I could feel her
Uh-huh.
energy. So,
Yeah.
like, it eased that energy. It was like, let's just take it easy. And,
Hmm.
and when she would laugh, it would make me feel really good. Because then you
It'd
put
make
her
you
in a
feel
better
really good.
state. Yeah. Put her
It'd
in a
make you
better
feel
state,
really
put
good. Yeah.
me in a better state. Yeah.
Precisely. Because you're isolated, you're in pain yourself, and now everybody's feeling good.
Hmm.
So, just like how we noticed that first adaptation that was there, which was when the pain was there, there was the disconnect, go away mentally, distraction. We just noticed another one, didn't we?
Which one?
When there's pain here, I help other people.
Mm. Yep. True. Yep. That's kind of
And
where I'm at now.
that's
Oh.
another form of disconnecting or bypassing the pain, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah, it
Uh,
can be. It can be if you're constantly doing it. I have my moments of just feeling the pain, but then helping others, like, you don't need to, and I kind of feel it, and let it pass. And helping others is something that brings me a lot of joy, and talking and talking things
Yeah.
out. So, like that also helps. I wouldn't say I use it quite as much as, I'm sure there were times in my life when I was ducking whatever I would use for ducking.
Uh-huh.
But now I understand the importance of just feeling things. And that's where meditation comes in, is I can just do a free meditation and just, stare at a candle and just let things come up, or I can do kind of a guided meditation, or just, just
Mhm.
listening to the tones, and just allow things that to just come up. So
Okay.
that's my time to feel, is in my
Sure, sure.
meditation.
Let me ask, how do you feel these things? What do you do when things are coming up? What do you do with them?
I just feel them. I feel them and let them pass. And if there needs to be some kind of a physical reaction, like if tears need to come out, I allow tears. And I kind of grew up in that kind of toxic masculinity, kind of ideas that men shouldn't feel, and they're kind of emotionless. They need to be strong at all times, and that whole ideal, which is very much prevalent in our society still. But letting go of that has really helped me. And for quite a while, I couldn't be around people when I was in these, it was in these emotional states, because I didn't feel like I could truly let go. And I've becoming better with it, around certain people, and I'm more comfortable letting my emotions go when I feel them. But that's been a struggle, especially being around people and letting my emotions go like that. That's been a really hard. It's been much easier to let them go. There's a time I didn't let anything go ever, and just stuffed away stuff, stuff,
Of
stuff. But
course.
now, like it's like, okay, I can let these go. I'm not around anyone, and I feel comfortable doing that.
What do
Well,
you mean let go? You let them go. What do you mean?
the sadness, any fear, anything that's going to kind of be noticeable in my energy
Uh-huh.
field, anything that's going to be, I mean, obviously tears are very noticeable. um you know eh, Anything like that,
Okay.
I struggled, and I still struggle with being around people and just letting that go when it comes up, because it can come up at random times. It can
Why is that?
it's
Why is it a struggle?
That's what I'm trying to, well, because it's that programming of that old programming of, men are supposed to be strong, men are not supposed to cry, that's not
Uh-huh.
a manly thing to do.
Okay.
And
So
so
what's the
that
belief
programming is
there?
still in there,
What's the belief there?
that that men aren't supposed to cry, that men are supposed to be
Yeah.
strong, that men aren't
Emotions are
supposed to
bad.
show, yeah, emotions are bad.
I'm
That's
not
it. Yeah.
supposed to have emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
this is bad, which then brings shame on for having emotions, which is just absolutely so toxic, right? That's
Yeah.
just so
Uh-huh.
so toxic, because then you're like, you're angry at yourself. You're creating another emotion for having emotions.
Hmm.
So you can see how that can just spiral out of control so quickly.
Yeah.
To now you're throwing anger in there. You're grieving someone, and then now you're getting angrier. So now you're grieving angrily.
It's a
It's
negative feedback loop.
it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
just so destructive, and I want our boys in particular, like, to just not have that, like, that
Hmm.
belief placed in them at all.
Yeah. So I think that we're starting to see what the struggle is, or why this flare of PTSD is still coming up. And again, this isn't a criticism or a judgment or anything. This is just to help understand what's happening here. Correct me here if I'm off the mark in any way, or tell me if I'm accurate. But it sounds like, because of these patterns that you developed early in life, of one, being isolated, two, not having anybody to teach you what to do with emotions, and three, emotions oftentimes having a negative consequence, the pattern was to suppress the emotions.
Hmm.
And now, as an adult, it's very difficult to navigate those emotions. They're overwhelming, they're difficult to process, and there's a belief that they're bad, so they shouldn't be here. While only part of you believes that, another part really wants to be able to have the emotions. There's a struggle and a
Hmm.
conflict happening here.
Yep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would, yeah, I would agree with that. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So then what we can do here is learn, and of course, this is not something that's totally new. This is something that you are learning and working on, and we can go deeper with it. in particular on how do we recognize, identify emotions? How do we process them? How do we express them in constructive ways? And how do we comfort and soothe or nurture those emotions? It sounds like that's the practice right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I would agree with that. Yeah, and you know, and grief is something that's you know, it's not something that can be just gotten rid of. Certainly, it's you know, especially in my situation where it's kind of ongoing, and you know, I can't just end the grieving. Like with my mother, it's like okay, I can let her go, and you know, like it's time to just you know, and that's not to say you know it's fine to get sad and miss my mom and stuff like that. That's all good, but you know I'm able to kind of let her go, and she's in a better place, and I don't have that old Christian bullshit programming if she's in hell or something garbage like that. But with my son, it's a little bit different because he's still alive, so I'm grieving someone that's still alive, and you know
Yeah,
there's still an opportunity of being in his life later, and you know, so I can't just let him go. So it's
right.
going to be something that's going to kind of come up every now and then, and wonder what he's doing or what he's up to, or you know where
Yeah,
this is going to lead someday. Like I, you know, I just you know
yeah.
not knowing. So it is tougher than a death. I don't want to say tougher necessarily, but it's different than a
Mhm.
death. Grieving someone who's still alive.
Sure.
So yeah, it's gonna be something that's gonna because I can't just it's not a thing that I can just completely let go like my mother was like
Right.
I've let her go. I've processed her
And that's
death.
not the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
We
not.
don't want
No.
to let it go, and we don't want to get rid of it. You're absolutely right about those two things.
Hmm.
So, what exactly are we going to do with this pain?
Well, you know, I think you know everything I've done is it's a whole lot better now. I can tell you that. I you know there's when it first happened and I was going through some stuff and it was just constant bombardment of you know depression and anxiety and crying sessions, crying fits that just came out of nowhere. And I mean, you know, like, you know, before the kind of I had that kind of flare up last week, it had been probably, you know, a year since something like that had happened. So,
Mhm.
and whereas before it was happening quite often, you know, like weekly, monthly is happening a lot. So I know I've done some healing, which is fantastic. And so to continue to keep healing because there is no healed. To continue to keep healing is something I want to strive for and just lessen you know, sometimes it's, you know, like if you struggle with anxiety like I have, you know, like you know, to get rid of anxiety completely is don't look at it that way necessarily, but you know, try to, you know, get it from, a baseline 7 to maybe a baseline 3, you know, like that's a
Yeah.
huge win. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm striving for. I don't want to be, of course, emotionless and or no, I don't, you know, I don't want that at all. So, but it is to be, you know, kind of more functional and let deal with them in a healthy way, which I'm proud of myself for, you know, last week for dealing with it in a healthy way and not picking up that drink or, you know, going to the weed store for some gummies or, you know, just to numb it away. Cause it was more intense cause I'll have kind of tearful sessions, but nothing quite that intense. So it was really good that, you know, I got through it, but you know, you know, it's rocky waters to navigate, I think.
It's rocky waters to navigate. So, I just want to notice the pattern here. And again, this isn't a criticism or a judgment. These are rocky waters, and maybe we might find some relief here. And that's
Mhm.
the goal. So, here I'm asking, what can we do with this pain? And I just want to notice how busy the mind got.
Mhm.
There's that familiar, good old friend, number one defense mechanism.
Mhm. Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, you know, it is, it's like, you know, my mind is like, now is not a time to deal with pain. So let's figure something else out. So yeah,
ah,
that is my programming was like,
yeah,
again, you know, like I'm talking to you, you know, so again, it's that comfort level of, you know, like feeling pain in front of people, which I'm very proud of myself for at least feeling the pain alone, but I'm still working on feeling the pain in front of people. That's
yeah.
still very uncomfortable for me. Yeah, you
Uh-huh.
got me there.
Yeah, yeah. Processing this pain is very difficult, especially if people see you.
Hmm. Yep.
Do you want to
Still
give it
have
a
that.
try?
we can give it a go. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I like uncomfortable things now. So
Yeah. And you know what? I'll give you a little comfort here. I'll tell you if for whatever reason, after we do this, if you don't like it and you don't want this to air for any reason, you just let me know and we don't have to air it. So
okay,
there's a little comfort.
okay, that's fine.
Okay. So right now, we're noticing that there's pain. Pain over a
Hmm.
very specific event, the loss of a partner and the loss of a son, an estrangement, a disconnection. And this pain from the past keeps showing up here, and the pain itself is uncomfortable. We don't know what to do with it.
Hmm.
The mind gets really busy, it kicks in, and then the stories of, well, I've done all the things, I've done good, right? I'm important here. I've done all these great things kick in to try and comfort and soothe it. There's the other adaptation of I get to make other people happy or other people get to value me. So that kind of takes us away from the pain.
Hmm.
So let's just notice those patterns. And let's say they exist because there's pain and we don't know what to do with it.
Okay.
Okay. So if they're there to try to take us away from the pain, let's try to set those defense mechanisms aside for a moment and let's
Okay.
try and turn into that pain. And what we're going to try and do, and I'll walk you through this. It's probably nothing new for you. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Either way is okay. What we're going to do is we're going to try and pay attention to that pain and we're going to try to engage with it and relate with it and process it. Before I do that, though, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
When you were a kid and you were isolated and you were constantly, we could say, judged, evaluated, what did you really need?
Love.
What would that look like?
Well, it's more of a feeling. I don't know. It's just a feeling that I would get of feeling loved. My mom did love me. She just
Uh-huh.
didn't know how to express it. The only way she could express it was buying me things. She would buy me
Yeah.
things. She would
Okay.
take me to the toy store. That's the only way she could
Sure.
express love. So
So what needs to happen for you to feel and receive love?
I do a pretty good job in kind of meditation of just feeling. I know I am loved. I know that. I just kind of there's there's that those times of disconnect where I
Yeah.
forget that.
Here's the busy mind again.
Yeah. Well, oh
Yeah.
no, it's
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. What needed to happen when you were a kid for you to feel loved?
What needed to happen? I would say, I mean, just hearing the words would have helped.
Okay. So to hear the words are what exactly?
I love you.
Okay. So to hear the words, I love you, first thing, somebody has to be there. If you're
Hmm.
all alone, you can't hear those words. There's nobody there to say them to you unless you're connecting with some sort of spiritual, energetic entity. But in other words, you need somebody to be there with you.
Before, yes. Now I can
Yeah,
connect with that energy
of
much better.
course.
But absolutely, absolutely before for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
needed someone there telling me that. Yeah,
Somebody to be present with you.
yeah, for sure.
Okay. If it was just some random person that you've never met before and they're just walking by and they just saw you and said, I love you, would that do anything for you?
It wouldn't be quite as impactful as coming from my mother, certainly.
Okay.
But yeah, it would have an impact.
It would have an impact. Okay. But it would have a greater impact if it was somebody who was important to you.
Hmm.
So tell me if I'm off the mark here. You needed somebody to be there to be present with you, but there needs to be some sort of attunement, some sort of connection here. In other words, this person needs to see you. They need to listen to you and understand what you're going through. And then they need to offer you some sort of comfort in the form of this phrase, I love you.
Hmm.
Is that it?
Yeah, say so. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would have needed during this time? Somebody to be with you, somebody to see you, somebody to listen to you, somebody to understand what you're going through, and then to offer some sort of comfort to you, some sort of connection.
Yeah, all of the above would have been ideal, certainly. Yeah.
Okay. Probably to do so consistently.
Yes. Yeah.
Can't just show up once and do it and then dip out and never do it again.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Can we think of anything else, or is that good for now?
That's probably good, I think.
Okay. Great. So now let's go into the exercise here. So now we know what this pain from the past needs. It needs somebody to be there, somebody to see it, somebody to listen to it, somebody to understand it, and somebody to offer some comfort in the presence of, I accept you, I value you.
Hmm.
Here's what I want you to try and do. I want you to think of that flare that happened last week. And I want you to check in with your body and see, is there a part of your body, your gut, your chest, your throat, your jaw, where you can feel that pain, that sadness where it lives, the sadness of I lost my son?
Chest. Chest is the biggest one. Can
Okay.
be kind of shortness of breath. It can be kind of a pain. And
Yeah.
then jaw clenching would be the other one.
Okay. Great. So let's try an exercise here. This is
Okay.
the exercise. What I want you to do is I want you to just take a couple breaths, close your eyes, and I want you to try to turn your attention to that feeling in your chest and in your jaw. That sadness that's there, that constriction, that labored shortness of breath, the clenching of the jaw. This is where that pain of my son still lives, but he's been taken away from me. I've lost him. And I want you to try to be that loving presence that you really needed that you didn't get. So, in other words, we're just going to try to see it. And we're going to spend just a few moments here just being with it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to fix it. And you certainly don't have to get rid of it. All we're going to do is just try to be that loving, accepting presence that says, oh, you're carrying around so much pain. You don't have to do that alone anymore. I'll be here with you. And if you notice your mind getting really busy and thinking about all the things and the dynamics and all the things that you can do, just notice that and come back to that feeling in the jaw and in the chest. Feel free to stay with this feeling as long as you want. And as these emotions are there, we don't need to get rid of them. We don't need to change them. We don't need to fix them. All we want to do is just connect with them and just allow them to be there. Allow yourself to feel that in your chest and in your jaw. And maybe try to be that warm, nurturing, comforting, attuned parent who sees all this pain and comes and wraps their arm around you and says, "You don't have to carry this pain alone anymore. I'm going to be here right here with you to go through it with you." And again, feel free to stay here as long as you want. And when you're ready, come on back. Something that's helpful at the very end of this is to smile at that feeling and say, "I'll come back. I'm not leaving you." Because again, if you show up once and do it and then don't do it again, it can make things a little bit more difficult. Uh-oh. I sure hope I didn't just lose you, Justin. I can hear you again, I think. Are you there? No.
Oh,
There we
there.
are,
Yeah.
Justin.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting timing, huh?
Yeah. Very interesting. That was kind of very strange timing. Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing went fine until the last
Yeah.
second.
So come back to me. What happened there?
I definitely felt very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah, doing it. And it's probably great that you're a guy because that made it even more uncomfortable. If you were a woman, I would have felt a little bit more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Being uncomfortable and kind of feeling emotions in front of another guy is like the most uncomfortable situation I could be put in. So, so thank you for pushing me past what I would normally do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of sitting with it, and it was very uncomfortable, and I was feeling things that, like I wanted to be like, nope, stop, like, like, all right, this is enough, like, because it was so
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. So, just sitting with that and being with it was very helpful. I didn't realize this podcast would turn into a therapy session, but you're a very good therapist. So it was really good, and the fact that you were a guy, you were meant to be a guy and go through this, because that makes me really uncomfortable. Is showing or feeling discomfort or showing emotion in front of another guy is the most uncomfortable thing for me.
Let's push a little deeper with that then. This discomfort. See, discomfort is the assessment or the evaluation of what you're feeling. What exactly is it that you're feeling that is so uncomfortable?
It's hard to to label the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a weird. I don't know, how do you label discomfort? Like, what is discomfort based in? I guess it's based in fear. I guess.
It can be.
Yeah, it's.
Like if you put your hand on the stove that's hot, that's going to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely that's past uncomfortable for sure. Yeah,
You know,
that's straight painful. Yeah, yeah, that's.
pain's uncomfortable.
Yep, pain is very very uncomfortable.
Is anger uncomfortable?
It can be for me now. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
was not. I think it was comfortable before, and I certainly have. My I've dated women that it's very comfortable to be angry, and so
Yeah.
yeah, and so now it is uncomfortable to be angry. But there was a time in my life when
Yeah.
it was not uncomfortable to be angry.
How about fear? Is fear uncomfortable?
Fear is very uncomfortable. Fear is the most uncomfortable. Fear
Uh,
like that. That's the most uncomfortable feeling for
It
me. So
almost sounded like
that's,
we got a ding, 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 ding right
yeah,
there, huh?
yeah. So yeah, I guess that's what I was saying. It was
Yeah.
probably based in fear, because fear is
Uh-huh.
the most uncomfortable thing for me. Fear of everything. Fear of failure is probably the biggest fear that I have to step through all the time.
Why is that? Why is fear so uncomfortable, especially fear of failure?
It's just, we have these standards in society, and it's, we kind of hold ourselves up to sometimes impossible standards. And
Where did you learn that if I fail, something bad's going to happen?
um well, it's mine kind of goes back to the drug addiction and not wanting to be my failure always leads to this is going to fail, then this is catastrophizing, and now I'm going to be homeless again and not, on drugs. And I mean, that's just, failing at something is going to lead to this horrible ending, and that's not accurate. But that's where my fear of failure comes from, is, well, I'm just going to wind up homeless, a drug addict on the streets again. Like, that's every failure like leads to that end result, even though that's completely irrational. But
Hmm.
that's where the
Yeah.
failure comes from, is like, well, I fail at this, then I'm going to fail at that, and then I'm going to lose my part, then I'm going to be homeless, and then I'm going to be on drugs again. And like,
Yeah.
it's complete catastrophizing. It's just irrational catastrophizing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it's fully developed there. I wonder if it goes back even further, like when you were performing, so to speak, as a kid to get other people's approval and attention. Was there a fear of failure there?
I mean, I'm sure there might have been, but yeah, I mean, I would just go ahead and do it, and risk it
Yeah.
and go for it if there was a
Sure.
failure there. But I would just go for it, because even if not everyone reacted in the way I wanted to, I would kind of feed off the ones that did. So
Sure.
there
Sure.
wasn't the fear wasn't as much back then, and I didn't have that fear of, as a child, of being homeless on the streets as a drug addict.
Yeah.
That was not real at that time.
Sure.
Having been there, is now established as a legit fear, but it's really not. But it's just because I've been through it. It's that kind of
Yeah.
PTSD that's like, that I don't want that to ever happen again. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so here, fear is it's a big one. I'm curious, when we leaned into something that was very scary just a moment ago and we tapped into the pain that was there and you did it in front of me, what happened to the fear? What happened to the pain? Did it get bigger? Did it get more intense? What happened?
in the beginning, it did.
Yeah.
It got kind of intense in the beginning, but then as I kind of sat with it, and like, my jaw always wants to clench when I'm feeling that. Like, that's like the first thing it does. It always wants to clench. And so, after feeling but then it kind of started to dissipate. So it was high and kind of peaked, and then it started to get lower as I kind of felt it and let it pass.
It dissipated and it felt lower.
Hmm.
So, like the clenching in the jaw and that constriction of the breathing, what happened with those as it dissipates?
They get better. The breath kind of, there's just this heaviness that kind of starts to fade a little bit, and
Hmm.
the jaw will get a little bit looser, and I have to kind of like let it go, and that helps dissipate it too. Is kind of like you're clenching your jaw, like relax it,
Yeah.
which also helps it to go down.
Yeah. Funny how, with just a minute or two of paying attention to those emotions, the fear and the pain that are there, yes, it got more intense when we first started paying attention to it, but then it resolves a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's healing for you. Yeah, yeah. There's always
So
stuff to work on.
that exercise right there, I would highly encourage you to continue to practice that. And when you're doing this psychedelic therapy, the ketamine therapy, that's an excellent practice to use while you're doing that. So
That's
you
a great
use
idea.
this, you use the psychedelic as a tool to help you go into these areas where that pain from the past still lives inside of you. And you're going to go into it and you're going to see it and you're going to be the presence that you needed, that you didn't have there. And you're going to help process and comfort, soothe and nurture that pain that still exists. And
Mm,
so when you have these flares where the pain from the past continues to show up in the present, those are signs that that pain still lives inside of you and it's asking for attention.
mm.
So if you use this exercise right here with the psychedelic therapy, you can get really deep into that pain fairly quickly, especially once you really have the capacity, the skills, the tools, which you've already been building a lot of these to go into that pain and to process it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I guess this was divine timing for that. That I just started this therapy. That yeah, no, that's something I'm definitely going to use on the next one is to kind of and yeah, I believe that that's going to be a big help. And that kind of intention going in is going to be really helpful.
What are you feeling right now?
More at ease, more relaxed. Certainly, there's diving into that discomfort is it it helps. It just it just you kind of release it a little bit and it's and just knowing it's there, like, you know, how much I struggle with it and I still struggle with it in front of people and so it's something that, like I said, there's only healing, there's no healed. So I'm always in the lookout for stuff that's gonna help me in my journey, and this is a
Yeah,
big help.
thank you. I'm going to push a little further because the emotions are a difficult aspect here. So at ease, more relaxed, what emotion do you think might be here? What emotion are you feeling with this kind of works?
Joy. See,
Very good.
that's kind of the prevalent one. Yeah.
And you
Yeah, not
see,
happiness, more joy. Joy is more that kind of peace. Yeah.
yeah, so you saw the mind gets a little busy there and it can take you away very easily from the emotion. That's the purpose of it. And that includes joy.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Joy is a great feeling to have because it's not that happiness, you know, that experience. It's just that peace, and that feels good.
Yeah, it feels good. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This has been
Yeah. Thank
lovely
you.
working through your experience here. Tell people who are listening if they wanted to read your book or find any of your work, where can they find you?
Yeah. So, I was off social media for a long time, which was a great few years, but back on Instagram. So there's sorcerer with a U underscore 13 on there. And then, the, the email is just sorcerer13 at Gmail. And then the book, it's on Amazon. I just put it on Audible too. So it's on Audible now. It takes a lot for people to read a book, but you know, Audible, you can listen to walking a dog or driving a car. So, and I got to tell my own jokes and do voices in it, which is a lot of fun. So, the book is on Audible, it's on Amazon, or the website is www.awakenthesorcerer with a u.com.
Lovely. I'll link all of those in the show notes. Is there anything else that you want to say before we end the recording here?
Um, okay, so one little thing, tidbit I love leaving people is someone like me, like this whole advice thing of live life like it's your last day is like so unhelpful for someone like me because my last day looks something like, you know, I'm not going to be doing my yoga and meditation. I'm probably going to get drunk and I'll wind up like robbing a pharmacy because, you know, it's my last day, whatever. So if we start living life like it's your first day, you know, that childlike curiosity about the world and things, and you know, you're in it for the long haul. First day, you're building something for the future. You've got that childlike curiosity of it's my first day. It's a lot more helpful for me. So that's something I love to leave with people. Stop living life like it's your last day and start living life like it's your first.
You said childlike curiosity. I'm hearing play here. I don't think that you said that word, but that's what I'm hearing. There's a lot of
Yes,
mm.
play.
So live life more curious, more playful.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's helped me a lot.
I love it. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.